The road talks to you if you know how to listen. You hear it in the steady hiss of tires cutting through wet pavement, in the deep growl of a V-twin under your legs, and even in the quiet stretches where towns thin out and disappear. For those of us riding with the Redeemers Motorcycle Club, the road isn't just asphalt and miles, it's our church. The leather on our backs is our uniform, our version of Sunday best. People are usually scared of us, and we notice it. Mothers pull their kids closer when we pass in grocery store aisles. Car doors click locked when we roll by at a red light. We don't take it personally. We get it. We're big guys. Loud ones. Our skin tells stories from years most people would rather forget, and our beards carry the dust of highways that don't show up on maps. But looks lie. They lie better than almost anything. Because under the patches, the noise, and the reputation, there's something else beating in our chests. We protect what can't protect itself. We're sheepdogs dressed like wolves. And every now and then, the real wolf walks in wearing a clean suit and a confident smile. That afternoon was a Tuesday, late enough that the day felt tired. The sky had turned that ugly, bruised purple that always means trouble is coming. A storm was brewing, so we peeled off the interstate and ducked into a roadside diner called SL, just past the county line. There were 6 of us, me, Bear who runs this chapter, the rest of my brothers, and then there was Tiny. Calling him Tiny has always been a joke. The man stands 6'7", built like a refrigerator packed with concrete, with hands that look more like shovels than anything human. He's the kind of guy people expect to rip phone books in half just to pass the time. And there he was, arguing with the waitress about whether the apple pie had enough cinnamon in it, smiling like a kid on Christmas morning. We were loud. We were relaxed. We were safe inside our circle. But just across the aisle, in the booth next to us, the air felt wrong. Cold. Heavy. Like it wasn't moving at all. While we laughed and ate, they sat in silence so thick it felt like it had weight. The man stood out first. Sharp suit, expensive watch, hair slicked back so perfectly it looked measured. Banker, lawyer, something like that, the kind of guy you're taught to trust without thinking twice. Beside him sat a woman, her face mostly hidden behind oversized dark sunglasses, even though the diner lighting was dim. Across from them was a little girl, maybe 10 years old. I'll call her Mia. She was swallowed by a gray wool coat that looked 3 sizes too big, the sleeves hanging past her fingers. She seemed small in every possible way, like she was trying to fold herself inward. If you've ever seen that look, you don't forget it, the look of someone doing everything they can to take up less space in the world. Her eyes were big and dark, full of panic, darting around the diner like a trapped bird searching for an open window. A plate of fries sat in front of her, untouched and cold. I watched the man closely. We have a name for guys like him, the controller. He didn't talk with them. He talked at them. When the waitress came by to refill their coffee, he answered for the woman. He ordered for the girl. Then he waved the waitress away without even looking at her. It was quiet, subtle stuff. The kind of control most people miss. But bikers live off reading body language. Out on the road, staying alive means knowing what someone's about to do before they do it. And I saw how he'd positioned himself. He sat on the outside of the booth, legs spread wide, blocking the exit. The woman and the girl were boxed in with nowhere to go. Things got tighter when the woman tried to slide out. Maybe she needed the restroom. Maybe she just needed air. She started to stand, and the man didn't raise his voice or cause a scene. He leaned forward instead, smiling like a shark, and cracked his suit jacket just enough. I saw it. She saw it. The dull, unmistakable flash of a pistol grip tucked into his waistband. She froze. Then she sank back into the seat, shoulders collapsing, her head dropping low in surrender. That's when the laughter at our table stopped. I kicked Tiny under the table. He looked at me, then followed my eyes. Forks went down. Food was forgotten. We weren't eating anymore, we were watching. The man stood, buttoning his jacket and glancing at his watch. "Let's go," he said, sharp and controlled. His voice wasn't loud, but it sliced through the diner noise all the same. "We're behind schedule. If we don't reach the cabin before nightfall, we lose time." The way he said the cabin made my skin crawl. It didn't sound like a getaway. It sounded final. He grabbed the woman by the elbow, hard enough to make it clear this wasn't a request, and yanked her up. Then he turned to the girl. "Hurry up, Mia. Stop dragging your feet." Mia scrambled out of the booth, clutching a beat-up coloring book to her chest like armor. She glanced at the door. Then she looked at us. Or more accurately, she looked at Tiny. To most kids, Tiny should have been terrifying. He's got a skull tattoo crawling up his neck and a scar splitting his eyebrow. But kids know things. They sense truth in a way adults forget. They know who the real monsters are. As she passed our table, the man already ahead, pulling her mother toward the exit, Mia stumbled. To anyone else it would have looked clumsy. To me, it was deliberate. The coloring book slipped from her hands and landed softly right beside Tiny's heavy combat boot. The man hissed from the doorway, not even turning around. Tiny didn't hesitate. He bent down, moving with surprising grace for someone his size. His massive hand, grease-stained, inked, scarred, reached for the book at the same time Mia did. Their fingers brushed. That hand could have crushed hers without effort. Instead, he was careful. Gentle. For a heartbeat, everything slowed. Mia didn't pull back. She didn't flinch from the biker everyone else. The first page showed a cheerful farm scene, ponies standing in bright sunshine. But the mood at our table had shifted completely. The air felt charged, like a live wire humming under the surface. "What is it, brother?" I asked softly, even though my gut already knew the answer wasn't good. Tiny didn't say a word. He opened the book to a page he'd folded over and slid it into the middle of the table. We all leaned in together. It wasn't a pony. It was a rough, rushed drawing, stick figures done by a shaking hand. A man stood over a woman lying on the ground, holding a black shape that needed no explanation. Above them, scrawled across the sky in jagged red crayon, were the words that sealed that man's future. "He has a gun. Please don't let him take us." Silence fell. Not normal silence, heavy, crushing silence. For 3 full seconds, nobody breathed. Those words burned themselves into my eyes. He has a gun. Don't let him take us. This wasn't a bad argument between adults. This wasn't a family dispute. This was a kidnapping happening in real time. A last message from a child before disappearing into that cabin and off the map for good. I looked at Tiny. The playful giant was gone. Completely. What sat there now was something colder, harder. A man built for war. His jaw was locked tight, a muscle jumping along his cheek. He looked at me, calm and ready, waiting. I didn't give an order. I didn't need to. Our rules don't need to be spoken. They're written deeper than words. You don't hurt kids. You don't hurt women. And you sure as hell don't cry out to the redeemers and get ignored. I stood up and dropped a 50 on the table for the pie we weren't finishing. "Mount up," I said quietly, my voice low and sharp. Black SUV. Nobody leaves that lot. The stakes were deadly simple. If that vehicle reached the highway, they were gone. Forever. We didn't know who he really was. Maybe a non-custodial father. Maybe a stalker. Maybe something worse. It didn't matter. A child had been terrified enough to trust a table full of bikers over the man claiming authority over her. That told me everything I needed to know. We stepped out into the rain, water soaking into our cuts instantly. But none of us felt the cold. All we felt was heat, pure, focused fire. The engines came alive, not with joy, but with intent. Low, angry growls. We weren't just men anymore. We were weather. We were the storm rolling in. Before we crossed that lot, let me ask you something, because this matters. If you'd found that drawing, what would you have done? Would you step in? Or would you look away? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. This brotherhood stretches farther than most people realize. And if you want to see what justice looks like when it shows up on two wheels, stay with us. What happens next matters. The change from the warm, greasy comfort of the diner to the brutal truth of the parking lot was instant. The rain wasn't just falling, it was being hurled sideways by a wind that cut through denim and skin. Still, we didn't feel it. Adrenaline does that. It sharpens everything, narrows the world until all that exists is your heartbeat pounding like a drum in your ears. I spotted the black SUV right away. Late model luxury. Dark tint. Engine running. The reverse lights flared white through the rain. He was backing out. Trying to escape. Inside that steel box sat a little girl who had trusted us with her life. We didn't run. Running is panic. Running means reacting. We don't react, we take control. We walked to our bikes in perfect, terrifying sync. I swung my leg over my softail, turned the key, and hit the starter. The engine didn't just start, it detonated. Tiny's bike answered beside me, a deep, chest-rattling thunder. Then another. And another. 6 American V-twins idling in the rain, drowning out the storm itself. The SUV stopped reversing. He'd heard us. The brake lights flickered. He hesitated. That was mistake number 1. Out here, hesitation gets you killed. He slammed it into drive. I heard the transmission scream as he punched the gas, tires spinning on wet pavement before catching. He was trying to swing wide, skip the exit, and jump the curb straight to the highway. Desperate move. Desperate man. Dangerous, but predictable. I didn't need the radio. Tiny already knew. He always does. As the SUV surged forward, Tiny dumped the clutch. His bike launched like a missile, carving a hard arc across the slick asphalt. He locked the brakes, the rear tire sliding sideways, and stopped dead in front of the SUV. The bumper came to a halt inches, real inches, from Tiny's leg. Any other man would have flinched. Any other man would have bailed. Tiny didn't move. He sat there, rain dripping from his beard, staring through that windshield like he was studying an insect. I pulled up on the left. Crow closed the right. Preacher and the rest sealed the back. Iron circle. We usually ride that formation for funerals and parades. That night, it was a cage. I killed my engine. One by one, the others followed. The silence that dropped was heavier than the noise ever was. Rain hammered metal. Inside the SUV, voices shouted, panicked, muffled. I dismounted slowly, straightened my cut, and walked toward the driver's side. The windows were tinted illegal dark, but I could see the chaos inside. He was locking the doors. Click. Click. Yelling at the woman. Hands flying. Control slipping away. For a man who lived by control, this was his collapse. I glanced toward the back seat. Through rain-streaked glass, I saw a small hand pressed flat against the window. Mia. She wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at me. Her face pale, ghost-like, waiting to see if the monsters outside were worse than the one inside. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I raised my gloved hand and knocked. Knock. 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 The sound of a neighbor asking for sugar, or the sound of something final arriving. The shouting stopped. The window stayed closed. Roll it down, I said. My voice stayed calm, almost casual. The rain carried my words straight to him. Nothing happened. I leaned closer, my face just inches from the glass. I'm not going to ask twice. Roll it down. The window motor whined. The glass lowered, but only an inch or two. Just enough for him to talk. Not enough for me to reach in. At least, that was his plan. I finally got a clear look at his eyes. They were darting everywhere, ringed with the wild, burning panic of a cornered animal. Sweat ran down his face even in the cold rain. "What do you want?" he snapped. His voice cracked. He tried to sound in control, tried to pull back the authority he'd worn in the diner, but it was gone. "This is harassment. I'm calling the police. Move your bikes or I'll run you over." I smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "You're not calling anyone," I said evenly. "See, we found something that belongs to you." I reached into my vest and pulled out the coloring book, holding it up to the narrow gap in the window. "Your daughter dropped this." His eyes snapped to the book. Then to the drawing inside. I saw it hit him, the recognition, the math happening behind his eyes. He knew. He knew that we knew. The fake mask of the worried father slipped clean off, revealing exactly what he was. "She's lying," he spat, flecks of saliva hitting the glass. "She's a sick little liar. We're leaving. Now." And then he made his choice. His right hand slid off the steering wheel and disappeared into his jacket. "Gun! Gun!" Tiny roared from the other side of the SUV. Time stretched out, thin and elastic. In moments like that, everything slows. I watched his hand move like it was underwater. I saw the fabric of his suit part. I saw the grip of a compact 9mm appear. He wasn't drawing to shoot me. He was drawing to control us. Worse, he turned in his seat. He aimed the gun toward the passenger side, toward the woman. "Back off," he screamed. The sound was muffled by the glass, but the meaning cut straight through me. "Back off or I swear to God I'll end it right here." That was it. The worst-case scenario. The point where heroic ideas die and ugly reality takes over. He had a hostage. A loaded gun pointed at a woman's chest. His finger tightening. I froze. Slowly raised my hands, palms open. "Easy," I said, pitching my voice to carry through the rain. "Easy. Nobody needs to get hurt. Just put it down." I could feel my brothers tightening the circle, muscles ready, instincts screaming. But we all knew the truth. Rush him and someone dies. Back off and he drives away, and finishes it later. Stalemates kill people. I needed time. I needed a distraction. I needed something to break the moment. I kept his focus on me. "Look at me," I said, stepping closer, putting my own body in the line of fire. "You don't want this. There are cameras everywhere. Walk away now and you might see a courtroom. Pull that trigger and you never leave this parking lot." His breathing was ragged. The gun shook in his hand. "Get back," he yelled. "Get back." He was so locked on me, so consumed by the threat at his window, that he forgot one important thing. Physics. Specifically, he forgot that a 300-pound biker named Tiny can move like a hunting cat when it counts. A shadow swept across the windshield. Tiny was already on the hood. The controller looked up just as the sky came down on him. Tiny didn't reach for a door. He didn't aim for the side glass. He stood tall on the hood, a giant framed against the storm, raised a fist wrapped in hardened leather knuckle dusters. And brought it down. Crash. The sound was violent and final. Safety glass is meant to shatter safely, not withstand the full force of a man fighting for a child's life. The windshield collapsed inward, exploding into a storm of glittering shards. The man screamed, throwing his arms up to shield his face. In that split second, the gun jerked upward, away from the woman. That was my opening. I didn't hesitate. I jammed my fingers into the cracked driver's window and yanked. The glass shattered. I reached inside, ignoring the sting as shards sliced my glove, and found the lock. Click. I ripped the door open. He tried to swing the gun back toward me. Too late. I was already inside his space. I grabbed his wrist, the one holding the weapon, and twisted hard. I felt cartilage give. He shrieked, high and broken. The gun clattered onto the floorboard. Out! I roared. Get out! I seized him by the lapels of his expensive suit and dragged him from the vehicle like dead weight. He slammed into the wet asphalt, splashing into a puddle. He tried to scramble, tried to fight. But he wasn't fighting a man anymore. He was fighting consequences. Crow and Preacher were on him instantly. We didn't beat him. That's not who we are. We're not thugs. We're redeemers. They flipped him onto his stomach, pinned his arms behind his back, and pressed his face into the cold truth of the pavement. Preacher planted a knee square between his shoulders. Stay down, Preacher growled. Don't move. The man was sobbing now. You can't do this. I'm a citizen. I have rights. You gave those up when you pointed a gun at a woman, Crow said quietly into his ear. I turned back to the SUV. The violence had ended in seconds, but the adrenaline still burned hot. Now came the hardest part, the careful part. The inside of the car was chaos. Broken glass. Rain dripping in. The mother was shaking, gasping for air, hands clutched tight to her chest. But my eyes went straight to the back seat. Mia was still there. I nodded and met her eyes. Yeah, sweetheart, I said quietly. He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore. That was all it took. Whatever wall she'd built inside herself finally gave way. She didn't cry like a kid with scraped knees. She sobbed like someone who'd been carrying fear far too long, like her whole soul had been holding its breath. Tiny walked around to the back door of the SUV. Rain ran down his cut, and there was a thin line of blood on his hand where the glass had bitten him. He opened the door slowly. He didn't reach in. He didn't rush her. He just held out his hand. It was huge. Scarred. Inked. To most people, it would have looked terrifying. Right then, it was the safest place in the world. Come on, little bit, Tiny said, his deep voice breaking around the edges. Let's get you out of the rain. Let's get you something warm. Mia hesitated for half a heartbeat. Then she clicked her seatbelt free, reached out, and placed her small hand into the hand of the man everyone else would have feared. She took the monster's hand to get away from the real one. The aftermath of violence is always quieter than you expect. No swelling music. No slow-motion victory. Just the sound of heavy breathing, rain hissing against hot engines, and eventually the distant wail of sirens closing in. The sheriff's deputies showed up about 10 minutes later. Normally, flashing blue lights in a parking lot full of bikers means trouble, questions, suspicion, hands-on-the-hood routines. But not that night. That night, the scene spoke for itself. They saw the collapsed windshield. They saw the man in the expensive suit, cuffed to the push bar of a cruiser, screaming about lawyers. And they saw us, the Redeemers, standing shoulder to shoulder, forming a windbreak around a shaking woman and her child. Sheriff Miller, a man I'd known for 20 years, walked up beside me. He took in the whole picture. The villain. The mother giving her statement to a female deputy. Tiny's swollen knuckles. He didn't ask for paperwork. He didn't ask questions. We found an unregistered piece in the footwell, he said quietly, rain dripping off the brim of his hat. Ran his ID. Warrants in 3 states, domestic battery and kidnapping. He paused, then gave a short, solid nod. You boys did good. That was it. No speeches. No medals. Just one protector recognizing another. The man was shoved into the back of the cruiser, his threats of lawsuits swallowed by the heavy slam of the door. Without his suit, his weapon, or his control, he looked small. Just an angry, frightened little man. We went back inside the diner. We had to. The adrenaline was fading, leaving that cold, shaky emptiness behind. SL, the owner, had already turned the heat up high. He brought over clean towels and poured fresh coffee. We settled Mia and her mother into our booth, the big corner one. The good seat. Preacher pulled a thick wool blanket from his saddlebag and wrapped it around Mia's shoulders. She was still trembling, but not from the cold anymore. It was the aftershock, the realization that the nightmare had actually ended. Tiny sat across from her, looking almost comical. A massive, rain-soaked biker blotting blood from his hand with a napkin, gazing at a little girl with the softness of a proud grandmother. He flagged down the waitress. Fresh pie, he muttered. A la mode. And keep it coming. When the plate arrived, apple pie drowning under melting vanilla ice cream, Mia just stared at it. Long enough that I wondered if she was still too deep in shock for sugar to reach her. Then she picked up the fork. Her hand shook just a little. She took a bite. I watched it happen. The warmth, the sweetness, the safety all hit at once. Her shoulders dropped a few inches, like someone finally unclenching a fist they'd been holding for years. The tight wire holding her together went slack. She looked up at Tiny, and a small, shy smile broke through the fear. It's good, she whispered. Tiny grinned, his beard splitting wide. Best in the state, kid. Eat up. You're safe here. While Mia discovered the healing power of apple pie, her mother turned toward me. Her sunglasses were gone now. Her eyes were red and swollen with exhaustion, but they were clear. The hunted look had disappeared. She reached across the table and took my hand. Her grip surprised me, it was strong. I didn't know what to do, she said, voice trembling. When I saw you, I was scared. I thought you were. I don't know. Gangsters. I chuckled softly. We hear that a lot. He told me nobody would help us, she continued, tears slipping down again. He said the world doesn't care about people like us. That if I screamed, everyone would just look away. I squeezed her hand, the leather of my glove creaking. He was wrong, I said. There are bad men in the world, sure. But there are brothers too. You just have to know where to find them. I glanced over at Tiny and Mia. They were deep in conversation. Tiny was rolling up his sleeve, proudly showing off his ink. To most people, a flaming skull wrapped in a snake means death. To Mia, right then, it was just art. Did it hurt? She asked, pointing at the dragon on his forearm. Like a bee sting, Tiny lied. But it makes me look tough. See? He flexed, making the dragon dance. Mia giggled, a pure, bell-like sound that cut through the diner noise. It was the best sound I'd heard in years. It sounded like victory. Eventually, the state caught up. A social worker named Sarah arrived, kind-faced and calm, working the night shift. She knew us. She knew that when the Redeemers called, it mattered. She spoke gently with the mother, explaining what came next: temporary housing, restraining orders, legal help. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Trauma doesn't disappear just because the bad guy's in cuffs. Thank you, she whispered, her words muffled against Tiny's vest. You take care now, little bit, Tiny managed to say. His voice caught hard on the last word. I saw him blink fast, tilting his head up toward the sky, pretending the rain was the reason his eyes were wet. We stood there in the parking lot and watched the taillights disappear. None of us moved until they were completely gone, until those two red dots were swallowed by the dark stretch of highway. Then it was quiet again. The rush was gone, replaced by a deep, bone-heavy exhaustion. But it was a good tired. The kind you feel after real work. The kind that tells you something important was done. Or in this case, that something precious was saved. Bear flicked his lighter and lit a cigarette. For a second, the flame lit his face. "All right," he said, exhaling smoke into the night. "Let's ride." The ride home is never the same as the ride out. The ride out is all fire and focus. The ride back is for thinking. As the yellow center line blurred beneath my wheels, flashing past like some kind of coded message, my mind kept circling back to the contrast of the night. I thought about the man in the suit. To the outside world, he looked like success. Stability. The kind of guy you hold doors open for. The kind people automatically trust. He was polished, clean, respectable. And inside, he was rotten. A predator wrapped in the disguise of respectability. Then I thought about Tiny. To most people, Tiny looks like a nightmare. He's huge. Loud. Covered in skulls and fire. Wearing a cut that screams trouble. People cross the street to avoid him. But when a 10-year-old girl's life was on the line, it wasn't the man in the suit who saved her. It was the monster in the leather vest. We live in a world obsessed with appearances. We're taught to trust the suit and fear the tattoo. To judge everything by packaging. And nights like this are proof of how dangerous that thinking is. Evil doesn't always look like a movie villain. Sometimes it drives a luxury SUV and pays with a platinum card. And heroes? Heroes don't always wear capes or badges. Sometimes they wear scuffed combat boots. Sometimes they smell like gear oil and stale coffee. Mia saw that truth right away. Kids usually do. She didn't see a biker gang. She saw a wall. She saw strength that wasn't being used to hurt, but strength that could stop the hurting. She understood something most adults forget. You don't need a knight in shining armor. You just need someone willing to stand in the rain and fight for you. There's a code we live by in the Redeemers. It's not written anywhere official, but it's carved into every mile we ride. It says this: strength is a responsibility. If you're big, you protect the small. If you're loud, you speak for the quiet. If you're strong, you carry the weak. That night, a coloring book hit the floor. It would have been easy to ignore it. Easy to say, that's a family matter. Not our business. The world tells us to mind our own lane. To look at our phones. To keep walking. But we don't ride for the world. We ride for the forgotten. We ride for the ones who don't have anyone else. Because if we don't, who will? Family isn't just about blood. That man in the diner was family by law, but a stranger by spirit. Real family is action. Family is who shows up when things fall apart. Family is who forms a circle when the wolves come close. That night, 6 bikers became uncles to a little girl we may never see again. And that's enough. That's the payment. The look in her eyes when she took that first bite of pie, that's worth more than trophies, patches, or money ever could be. So the next time you see a group of us rolling down the highway, loud and rough and taking up space, don't be afraid. Look closer. Look past the leather. Look past the ink. You might just see a father. A brother. A protector. We are the Redeemers. We are the gentle bikers. And we're always watching out for you. If this story meant something to you, if you believe justice is worth standing up for, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this video so the world knows good people are still out there. And subscribe to the channel to ride with our brotherhood. Until next time, keep your knees in the breeze, and never, ever walk past a cry for help?